Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this episode entitled U.S. Election Reform with Christina Tobin and MARYAM HENEIN. Of course, you can find our co-host on the In the Dark series and also Bare Naked Truth here at MARYAM HENEIN on YouTube. MARYAM, welcome back to the show.
Good evening. Hello. Hi, Christina.
Hello, MARYAM. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Good to have you back, MARYAM. It's been quite a few weeks since we did a show together, so I'm excited tonight to dive into this election reform story. And of course, thank you so much to the audience for joining us tonight. A brand new guest to the show this evening, Christina Tobin. You can find her at freeandequal.org. Christina, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for all that you do.
Well, thank you for being here, and this has been a long time coming. You and I have been trying to schedule this episode for quite some time here, and life got in the way, so I'm excited that we're finally on, and of course, it's still very much an important topic for everyone here, seeing as the world is going, the direction is going now. The more we can educate and the more we can have this conversation, the more hopefully we can prevent some of the problems that seem to have occurred in our last election. So, Christina, again, welcome to the show. I'm really happy to have you, and welcome everyone to this live interactive show. We will be taking your comments throughout the show, and also perhaps some questions if we have time closer to the end of the show. So thank you guys for participating with us this evening. I'm going to ask Christina here the first time guest question on our show, and it goes like this. Christina, how did universe conspire to bring you to this type of work?
Oh, it was definitely my father, Jim Tobin. He's been running his own company called Taxpayers United of America for over 40 years now, fighting against tax increases in Illinois. And Dad decided to run for governor really at the peak of his career in 1998. I was 17 years of age at that time. And I learned that third-party candidates and independents had to get 25,000 signatures from registered voters just to get on the ballot in Illinois, while Democrats and Republicans only had to get 5,000 signatures. And Dad turned in over 65,000 signatures. He was recommended to be placed on the ballot, and the State Board of Elections still knocked him off. So Dad sued the State Board directly out of pocket, went all the way to the Supreme Court case, $1 million case, and he lost that case. But Richard Winger, a mentor hero of mine, election law expert, Ballot Access News, called me the silver lining of 98 because it made me mad at that time that I saw an accountable, good candidate wrongfully get knocked off the ballot because he was a threat. So I've devoted a pretty big chunk of my life towards reforming our electoral system ever since, really my whole life.
Well, that's very good. And I'm curious, when you were a child and looking at your dad fight the machine here, what were your thoughts? Did you ever think that you would be walking in the same shoes here a little bit later on in your life?
I mean, I never met my biological dad till I was 13. I was raised in Texas thinking somebody else was my biological father, and he passed away. So I never grew up around a political arena in Texas. And so to have a second chance of having a dad, I don't really talk too much about that, but I am now. And it really just kind of being around him, it inspired me, yes, to be in this world, this life, this future, and the electoral arena. Your exact question was, what was it again? It's been a long day of interviews and calls.
Okay. Same with
back
me.
all day.
And I have to admit too, I did another show earlier today, but I've been outside working in the greenhouse all day, and I think I'm a bit dehydrated. My head is pounding a little bit, so we're gonna try to do this.
I know I've got my coconut water right here. So
Aww,
let me take a quick sip myself. So. No, I think you did okay with that. Let me ask you this question, and I'm going to let MARYAM also ask you a few questions here before we get into the subject matter. And I want to share your slide deck with the audience as well as we go in here, and then we'll get into this conversation, the three of us here. When you were, let's say, a teenager, and you were maybe more idealistic or maybe more naive as to how the world really worked, did you ever think that we would see the degradation of our democracy to the point that we're seeing it today? Let's start there.
Yes.
You did.
In fact, when I see people, well, maybe, I was angry then. So yeah, that was, whether it was naive or just lack of experience in that realm. I feel that about a lot of people right now after this most recent, even last presidential election and this one, so many new people getting to the arena coming from a place of anger and so prone to fear. And I had that back when I was 17, years of age. So I would say that, I'm sorry, my cat needs to go out and she keeps meowing. I know we're live, but I have got to let her out. She's going to meow the whole time. Just a second.
Go ahead. No problem. Folks, let me bring up this website again here. You can find all of this work here at freeandequal.org. Let me bring that link down to the chat for you guys as well, so you can follow along.
Doesn't do that very often, but I knew she wouldn't stop. So it's distracting me there twice. So.
That's okay.
But I recognize at 17 years of age, we have a huge problem. I did foresee, as throughout the years and decades of really uniting with a lot of leaders and inspirational individuals, that we would be where we are today. And that was a huge spark in why I felt at, I guess I was like 27 years of age, I guess, give or take, why an organization like Free and Equal Elections needed to exist. I felt strongly we would be where we are today, and we would need a platform that could unite our nation, essentially our world, like no other, and recognizing that we are beholden to a two-party system, really a grand illusion that, these candidates, they've rigged the system so much to keep, independents out in the cold. And so Free and Equal Elections is here to give independent candidates, whether they're using a party line in the short term, which will be happening for the next couple cycles or so. I'm never attached to a timeline, but ultimately, parties are just, corrupt. And as they become larger, they inevitably become infiltrated. And that even happens within alternative third parties as well. So Free and Equal Elections is here to truly bring about transparency within our elections.
Very good. And before we get into this mission and the mandate of Free and Equal and some of the events that are coming up here, I can show this to the audience on the website. Maryam, do you have any personal questions for Christina in terms of her introduction here to the audience and what you think maybe people would love to know before we move forward here to the next topic?
I'm going to save my questions because they're a little bit deeper and I wanted to ask about how you got into this to share with the audience, but maybe you can. Do you still play tennis?
I do from time to time.
Okay.
And I did Taekwondo as a kid too. So 4 years, black belt. So
nice.
I think that helped give me a lot of discipline from 8 to 11, 12 and structure, and coming from a peaceful place and dealing with things. It was very grounding to do that. And tennis as well. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Very good. So, Maryam, why don't you take 2 minutes here and tread carefully with some of the words. And I want to give a preface to the audience here. Of course, both Maryam and I have had YouTube channels deleted before for some of the work here on the topics that we're talking about tonight. So we've learned that we're going to have to use some code words here and there, but I can appreciate that you guys know what we're talking about, and we're going to do our very best to continue the fight. But again, just maybe tweak some of our language. So, Maryam, why don't you set the stage a little bit for the audience here. Briefly, you and I were doing a lot of this work with Amy Fulmer, Leiko and Lisa, Dave, and yourself here on the In the Dark series before and during the campaign. So let's start this stage on how things transpired and how maybe today the social contract appears to be broken here. So let's take a few minutes here to showcase to the audience how you saw the last maybe 5 or 6 months transpire, and then we'll really dive into this question of election reform and maybe some of the tips and tools here moving forward so that we don't go through that same story again.
Okay, I hope I do justice, but basically the evening of the elections, celebrating or seeing a certain direction, and then a whole country observing that something odd happened because the numbers went down and the morning results were different. And then for me personally, wanting to have a educated conversation with the left, for lack of a better term, and wanted to get into it and see what actual shenanigans, and speaking to Matthew DePerno, speaking to Arizona officials about the Sharpie Gate, pouring over lawsuits, attending the hearings, and speaking to pollers and whatnot, and really getting into it. And then upon digging, you do realize that election effery is not anything new. And that in fact, even some of these machines that were up for question have been up for question before. And then I think a whole group of people really were disenchanted and felt that democracy or the republic was at stake because their voice wasn't being heard. And of course, if you have one side, it's different if you have come with a grievance and the other side, let's say I'm competing, I want to win fair, by all means, let's take a look. But when you have the extreme, which is gaslighting, and then saying that gaslighting and then telling the people that they're gaslighting, or just all this projection, and not even entertaining the possibility, to the extent that today it's now referred to as the big lie. And you have a public, an outfit like Time magazine talking about a elite cabal that fortified the election. So that, I think it's reaching new heights in the election effery. So my perspective, I would ask you, what was your experience, and what patterns have you seen before? And also, when you dig, you notice that the Rona was used to destabilize, for lack of a better word, a lot of these regulations within the integrity of elections, and paved the way. It was used as a Trojan horse, and this crazy mania for mail-in voting. I hope that's, thank you.
Well, I would say that, with free and equal elections, we have quite a few projects. We're really known for our presidential debates that we hosted in 2008, first time any debate's been nationally televised outside of the mainstream commission on presidential debates. But we've also been hosting annual electoral reform symposiums. So bringing together members of, whether it's the Secretary of State, controllers that deal with the voting machines directly, and questioning the individuals that run those machines, whether it starts with a D or a D, and who sold it, and the money behind that, the owner and the names of those machines. And it goes beyond the voting machines and the mail-in ballots. And I discussed a little bit about ballot access, the fact that to run as an independent for president, you have to get well over 700,000 signatures, while it's only, I think, 25,000 or so for Democrats and Republicans, over 700,000 to run as an independent for president. So if you're truly a threat to the system, that can be upwards of a $10 to $20 million ballot drive just to get on the ballot as an independent for president. And then you get into gerrymandering. We've had professors that are just experts in gerrymandering that have spoken at our symposiums. You can go, that will be on our website pretty soon. It's on YouTube, but everything's getting moved over to our website, where you can learn how gerrymandering has, let's just say, benefited some candidates over others, and skewed it. Would be the how do you say, the furry way, for however the word that she used, how she says it, that word.
Effery.
It's so weird that we're just so kept from speaking our minds, which is why we're bringing it on the ground with free and equal elections, and not on the internet, because the censor just needs to stop. So there are a lot of flaws. The reason why is so it keeps electing the same two types of candidates, R's and D's, which are essentially one party as far as I'm concerned. Congressman Ron Paul has told us, former Republican congressman, there's no difference between the Democrats and Republicans behind the scenes. And we've worked with Dennis Kucinich as well. I think both are men of integrity and speak their truth. They're not really beholden to anyone. To Kucinich and Jesse Ventura, Ross Perot in his own way as well, miss him, and so on. So there are a lot of challenges to the current system, but my take is all the more reason to fix it. It's going to take some work, but it is actually a lot easier to fix it than what we are being trained to believe by the system and all the tools that it has, whether it's mainstream media and so on, to lead us to believe that there's no hope. That's just simply not the case. We are going to fix it. We have to.
Absolutely. Before we get into the how to fix it, I wanted to bring up your attention to a comment here by Albert. He says, yeah, there's 144 watching, 151 right now. So that leaves us with 329 million people left to reach. So you talked about bringing us on the ground, of course. So explain to the audience here what you mean by that with the symposium and the events and how you're actually doing this grassroots campaign across the United States.
It's definitely, when we did our debate in 08, Chris Hedges came in as our moderator, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. And in 2012, we raised the bar, and Larry King and I co-moderated together. Condolences to him and his family. He put us on the map. We reached modestly tens of millions of people, more so internationally, live through whether it's Al Jazeera and RT, and then in the States, C-SPAN and PBS and so on. And so when that debate happened in 2012, we started our annual electoral reform symposiums in 2010. In 2014, I heard a quote by Dr. Ron Paul, and he said, if we're ever going to bring about revolutionary changes, I like to drop the R and say evolutionary changes. He said 2 things would need to be involved: the youth and music. So this was an inspiration in the creation of United We Stand Festival in 2014. That's 3 of our 5 key projects with free and equal elections. And the United We Stand Festival brings together conscious artists and thought leaders and so on, musicians, to spark those conversations. As John Lennon says, there's no problems, only solutions. And through conversation, we can bring about and will bring about those solutions, which is why they're trying to censor us on all different platforms. So in any case, the United We Stand Festival will be hosting this July 3rd and 4th. Here in Cambria, California, my hometown, Central Coast, just south of Big Sur, the 3rd and 4th. And it will be live streamed. It's a private event, invite only, and we're going to be live streaming it through freeandequal.org. So freeandequal.org. So you'll be seeing the sign up. The speakers we have are just really, really special, from G. Edward Griffin, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, to Cindy Sheehan, who lost her son in the Iraq War, to Brock Pierce, who ran as an independent for president, cryptocurrency billionaire. He's going to run as an independent again in 24 and 28. And so on. Sean Stone will be there. His dad's Oliver. And you can see the list and the artists and so on. And this is just the first round. So many more coming. The bigger vision, it's pretty cool. I can go into details about that. It's just building into a 2024 presidential debate tour, up to 10 stops where I'll be moderating with celebrities and conscious artists, thought leaders, whoever they may be that resonate towards our platform. And we will present every stop of that debate with the United We Stand Festival. And we will also implement our 4th project, the blockchain voting app, which is powered by Nexus Earth. And that will transform our elections and bring about political transparency. So that app will implement instant runoff voting, where the people can vote from first debate into the 10th debate, kind of American Idol style, where they can decide through instant runoff voting, not singular voting. See, there's another improvement we need to make to the electoral system, is we have the worst voting system ever, singular vote, because that's what keeps getting the D's and R's reelected over and over again. For sure, another tool they use to benefit them. So we'll have instant runoff voting in that app. And we'll also list every single candidate running for office. These are third parties and independent candidates, because the Gallup polls say there's more independent voters than there are D's and R's. So we're going to give them a platform to have a free and equal chance of winning.
Wonderful. That's awesome.
Go ahead.
I feel, sorry, I was going to say that it seems that the crowd, and correct me if I'm wrong, has a level of new consciousness. Do you find that the people who are gravitating have consciousness and in touch with their hearts? Like I saw John Nash, and I used to see him at LIB, and he's put his magic markers on me, and a lot of those people have a sense, because I'm from California as well, consciousness. So what say you to that?
It's funny. I see a comment here from somebody saying, "Oh my, Brock Pierce party time." Yeah, definitely party time. But let's have a party. And I'm not talking political parties, because they do not work. Parties are evil. I mean, really, they just get co-opted no matter how as they grow. So yes, John Nash will be one of our hosts. We'll be opening the United We Stand Festival, is a great question, with Doug Redhill. He's known as the uncle of Naco Bear, from a native prayer, from a place of prayer. It's very special. John Nash would beautify our lives, and he's been on several stops of our tour throughout the years. Really, actually just got off the phone with him right before this, and Danny and the Choctaw, and so the indigenous tribal world is definitely, the energies bringing them in. And you're right, I am so done with politics. Yes, I'm doing free and equal elections, but I am not into politics. But it is my duty to get involved, because I'm not liking what these people in office are doing. They are not serving us. They're serving money, follow the money, and they're beholden to the bigger powers and so on. So let's unite. I knew one day there'd be this censorship on the internet after 9/11. We saw what happened, Patriot Act, the NDAA. This does not come as a surprise. So I decided to focus most, if not almost all of our energy on building these projects from the ground up. So that's what I mean by that. And real change is going to come from the ground up, where we can speak and talk to each other face to face. And what better place to really spark it than in my own community, Cambria, where I'm very involved in local elections to help preserve this town and have integrity within our local elections. So that's important.
Well, that's very good. Thank you so much. So let's switch gears and dive into how to fix the system. You said earlier, your statement was, it's actually easier than we are being led to believe. Of course, we're always told how complicated it is, and that's why there's never any action taken. So let's dive into it here and give the audience here a few concrete steps of how free and equal and the policies and ideas you're bringing forward can actually help fix the system.
That's a great question. When I took on the ballot drive for Ralph Nader in 2008, everyone on the campaign, Ralph had been knocked off the ballot in 32 states in 2004 by the Democratic Party when he was really at a peak of threat. And in 2008, nobody believed he could get on the ballot. And I said, yeah, we're going to do it. And we did. And overcoming the odds, because falling short is not an option. So to succeed in that ballot drive, we got him on the ballot in 45 states plus DC. Was really overcoming the odds. We didn't have enough money to do all 50 ballot drives. How are we going to fix the system? Well, the spark of free and equal elections, I was at the DNC with Ralph Nader. I remember him looking at all the press, and he said, Christina, I could interview with every member of the DNC right now, of this press here at the DNC, and I wouldn't reach but 2 to 3% of what the Commission on Presidential Debates reaches. And that sparked, again, as I mentioned before, the creation of free and equal elections. So fast forward 12 years, I started talking about that blockchain voting app. That is really the beating heart of free and equal elections. We start with Congress first. The mainstream media leads us to believe the presidential races are the most important race, and it's not. It's Congress. Like, Congress is key. And we're talking a couple hundred seats. I ran for statewide office at, I think, 27 years of age, around 2010. And for Secretary of State of California, if I can run in my mid-late 20s for office, all of you that are here, you 100 and so many more that are going to be here in the future, can run as well. And you plug into our blockchain app. We're going to be working with so many like-minded organizations across the spectrum, from Chad Peace of the National Association of Nonpartisan Reformers, and Rob Ritchie of fairvote.org, and Josh Singer of represent.us. We've worked with Headcount and Rock the Vote. The list goes on and on. We're essentially the connector group to bring all these groups united to be heard and felt and reached, out to the masses, even beyond the United States of America, because the whole world is watching the US of A right now. So we rise, we build something bigger outside of the current system, and we replace these couple hundred seats. That's it. And we give them the resources. It's not all about just money. Now, Ralph did say once back in the day, only the super rich can save us. And the cryptocurrency world is pretty awesome to be seeing what's happening there. There's a lot of money, and like even Brock himself being a billionaire, there's a lot more that people that want to give back and make our earth a better place. He's one of many, many more, many out there, many more rising. So I see a lot of beautiful things coming in the future. We just got to manifest it, quantum physics. And when we do that, it does come true every time.
And it's funny you say that, all the money going in. Just in the last couple of days here, we crossed above the $2 trillion market cap in crypto. And of course, that is making some crypto millionaires. But what's interesting about that too, it's empowering a lot of people who at the core value have freedom and equality as their values. And they're running away from the old fiat Ponzi scheme financial system that we have. So it will be a very different world as these new people are empowered here in this system. Now, let me ask you a question. So you talked about Congress. It's a little bit different here in Canada, but let me try to equate my question so that it would make sense to you. If we are going to bring new blood into the system, as you say, and have very little or no barrier to entry to running to be a representative, how do we come together to fix one of the issues that I see, which is a lot of this big money or these big lobbying firms that really have their claw and their hands on the local candidate nomination committees for a lot of these parties? How do we get them out of the way so that we're not looking at a selection, but a pre-selection, if you wish, but really an open terrain for anybody who wants to represent their community? How do we address that?
Well, I wanted to, I love reading people's comments. I don't like the music industry, don't trust the music managers and producers. And I agree with you, there's corruption in the music industry as well. I want to say that, hence United We Stand being a platform where those candidates can truly speak their voice. And back to, to your question on lobbying, and I think, again, the key, the solution, what I'm seeing right now is the best thing right now, and I think it'll even become obsolete in 5 to 10 years, is blockchain voting, the blockchain app. I foresee as we plug these candidates, all of them into a blockchain app, all the musicians, the artists, organizations, supporters, donors, crypto billionaires, and so on, are going to start directly supporting these candidates, where lobbying is like, imagine on an app where you can go in and see how much money, an actual movement around the app too, a real movement that takes a lot of work to build, deep roots. And so where you can see which candidate follow the money, like what money they're taking, what they're not. Like if they take money from Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps, are you going to trust to vote for him? I would. That's cool. Versus, like most of the D's and R's in office. So I think like parties, it's a bold thing to say right now. And I know, but I am big on foresight. Lobbying is something that's just like going to become a bit more obsolete as parties become obsolete. And as people are asked by their communities to run, we're going to be having people that are running that aren't seeking to run, but who are already involved in their local communities, that are engaged and doing beautiful things and realize, you know what, it's a duty. I'm going to run this one cycle, and then I'm going to pass the baton on to someone else. I ran once, I'm good. I know I'll be asked again, but I'm really good with just doing free and equal elections and helping get candidates elected. That is just what I love doing, and putting people on a stage and hearing their beautiful visions and helping elevate them. People are doing that for me, and I want to pay it forward to others. So it's a bold thing to say. I think that by an idea that's rising bigger than any party system, the money that controls it, the banks, the monetary system, and so on, the lobbyists, it's just an old paradigm, and it's inevitably going to become obsolete. It is. It has to. The latter's not an option.
The one thing I would agree with you, and I'm encouraged with blockchain transparency, is exactly that, the transparency into the system. So it's very hard for lobbyists and big money to pluck a candidate that nobody wants, when in fact everybody is on the blockchain and seeing in real time who's supporting who. So this will bring a brand new world to us. And then that translates into the election, but it also translates into smart contracts and how our representative officials actually use the money in our budget. So imagine smart contracts where in your vote, you can have your pre-selection of what you feel as a voter is important in terms of government spending. So as opposed to right now, sending people to Capitol Hill and then taking our money and going to bomb other countries, we can actually look at maybe educating our youth and keeping people out of prison and all of these things. So there's a lot to be said on that, and hopefully we can do this second show and invite a few more people from the crypto world to see how all of this could tie in together. So that would be partie reprise in French for the next time. We'll get back into that. Maryam, do you have any more questions?
I do have some, because maybe you are more versed with crypto, and I'm just getting into it. But when I was looking at election reform, I was looking at, you mentioned American Idol and who owned their patent, and then I learned that the USPS also has a patent, a crypto patent. So how would it work? Is there, whose patent do we use? Can you talk a little, like, to newbies about that without getting too much into it?
Gosh, I might be a little bit of a newbie to that question too.
Okay.
I'll admit to it. I definitely had just a brief thought, because I see comments coming up in the thread, and I felt that was going to come under a blockchain voting ledger. You know, we actually could and will shift the power from the federal to the local level. That's what's going to happen with blockchain voting. So when we get candidates that are not only asked by their community to run, but a lot of them have backgrounds in technology and so on, when elected, they may support implementing blockchain voting into the system, and ultimately being like, hey, people, whether you're going to self-govern yourselves or government's going to cut back, arguably back to the origins of the Constitution, 70-80%, and then people can decide on a local level how to spend their tax dollars and where it's going. And yeah, on the blockchain ledger, you can see where that's a whole nother discussion. So as far as patents in the crypto world, I
Is that a silly question? Maybe it doesn't make sense. Like, why is USPS, American Idol, also used a secure way to vote? Do you know the answer to my question?
Why don't they? Or why?
No, you know, is there a different ways to do crypto? There's different patents, and if one is geared like USPS, are we using theirs? Whose are we using? I don't even, if it's a silly question, I apologize.
Yeah, I don't know an answer to that one.
Well, so there's a lot of different blockchain technologies.
Silly.
So there's a lot of different technologies, and they can be forked, basically duplicated and then improved. So we could see a situation in the States where we start with one and then eventually keep moving up, just as cryptocurrencies have evolved quite a great deal since the advent of Bitcoin in 2009. But going back to USPS filing this patent on their voting system, that to me is worrisome, because of course if you look at what happened in November and some of the evidence that came through and some of the employees that came through working for these institutions, how they were told from their higher ups to maybe take some moves that were against the law. And I'm being careful here with my words. Do we trust them to hold a patent on a blockchain technology at this point, or do we want a third party to oversee that in a way? Because there's a difference between full, transparent, open blockchain and centralized blockchain technology. So we're going to have to distinguish that at some point. But again,
I got it now. It absolutely needs to be. I've read that article, so thank you for popping it up again. But it absolutely needs to be independent. Right. Do I support, for example, when marijuana started to become legal and the patents, you could see the cigarette companies. There's a correlation here. If suddenly you have these patents ahead of time for marijuana, do I trust how they're making it? No, it needs to be independent entities. I don't trust the USPS because it's a product of the system. I'm a big optimist. I give the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. But what they're doing there is troublesome. It definitely needs to be its own separate and independent entity with an exceptional reputation.
Right. And this is where somebody just said Veritasium. Yeah, I had Reggie Middleton on the show twice already. We talked about his product and how it can completely transform our financial systems to the better and remove all of this hypothecation of the stocks and a lot of the basically adding to the ledger without anybody knowing. So when we have this open ledger technology, we can stay away from these problems. So maybe we'll reserve some of these more technical questions for the next show, and we'll invite some people to really dive into the crypto part of it. But suffice it to say for now that we have technologies that are available to us. Now it's how we manage those technologies and who manages those technologies. And it's not because it's blockchain that it's infallible or that it cannot be reprogrammed in such a way to skew results. So we're going to have to be educated, and we're going to have to watch this carefully if we indeed want true, free, and equal elections here moving forward. Now, Christina, on top of the blockchain technology, the tours, the education, the moving away from the two-party system, what else in your stack here are you thinking about in terms of ideas on how to fix the system?
Well, to kind of respond briefly on what you said before with elections and transparency, and again, the blockchain voting app and blockchain ledger, I do feel will help bring about transparency in our elections. Once we do that, technology is the next thing. I mean, we can see government and space and ownership and space warfare. It's just like, it's the writing's on the wall. But when we bring that transparency within elections, everything's going to fall into place, and we'll have that transparency on a ledger within technology, so we can see people who have the best of intent, which there are so many for technology and doing great things in the world, and there are those who don't, and same on the electoral arena part. As far as fixing things, oh man, the biggest thing is the cultural shift and mindset. Do not fall for the trap, for the trick of giving up. Like the mainstream media, the corrupt music industry, and even corrupt Hollywood, and I mean gaming, the tools of dark energy, Hollywood. It's so clearly written on the wall that they're trying to brainwash us into thinking there's no hope. And of course, we've had the not the ability to go out of our houses for the last year, and a lot of force and push from that, which is just wrongful. And all of that was writing on the wall that I could see happening, what's happened this last year, years prior, because of knowing so many people on the internet side with the Mind Unleashed and Collective Evolution, Free Thought Project. These pages, you have tens of millions, if not more, of supporters and views. Just suddenly algorithms were slashed overnight when people were for putting just the V word, right? We don't want to say, or people coming out against. And so it's really the mindset, the mind shift and way of thinking. So here at Free and Equal Elections, again, we recognize that giving up is not an option. The moment you give up, you become a part of the problem. And so here at Free and Equal Elections, as I mentioned to you, I don't know of any other platform that has a long-term solution-based direction. You know, when I look at the riots overseas, I see over time how they become co-opted over time in Egypt and in so many places, because these people don't have a place to land. They don't have a foundation, a platform that is so deeply rooted. And I am so deeply rooted in the work that I've done for decades and consistent, and individuals and spokespersons and individuals in their roles, whether it could be a Marianne Williamson, which I was really bummed that she endorsed Biden and Gabbard too, but they played a role. Dennis Kucinich and Jesse Ventura and Perot, good on them for really staying in Nader and Anderson, have all paved the way for something so much bigger than any one person. So I would say that everybody, while we're here on earth breathing, we have a chance to make things right. And gosh darn it, like, let's play our role, whether it's donating our time to help in our community, giving back in that way, to helping volunteer for a candidate that you resonate with. Whatever it is that you can give back is how we're going to bring about that cultural change and shift and really have things go in a more peaceful direction, which is not what the system wants right now. They want to go right on to the next divisive issue of domestic terrorism. I mean, that's just like it's playbook. I mean, this is
playbook, exactly.
Rockefeller, Rothschild. I mean, come on, Soros. Like, it's just this is all they know how to do. And so when we recognize that, I see that our whole Free and Equal Elections team sees that, and all the organizations we're working with. And as we unite more and more of them together, there's just no way the system's going to be able to overcome the people uniting.
Right. Okay, so there's two things here I want to follow up on. So one, you talked about the algos, and this is something I know a little bit about. And of course, just last week, Zero Hedge was announcing that after doing some research here, some investigators found that YouTube had deleted 2.5 million dislikes from the videos on the official White House channel of the president. Now, imagine that. So, of course, disgrace. Absolutely. And still, even after deleting all of those, the numbers are still way down. So it's just like they can't keep up. But it's interesting that, of course, these algos are being used again to try to fix and manipulate our reality. Now, it's one thing to have the blockchain voting so that we have this open transparency in terms of who and what our intentions are for our vote, but we still need to fix this here in the mainstream media and all of these social media giants. So I'm not sure if you have anything in your arsenal to try to bring the education maybe to a higher level here for the audience, so that we can push together to do reform there as well. Because if these people are left unchecked and we continue to see the censorship that is going on right now and the reasons why we're using code words, we're not going to have free and equal elections. So what do you say to those social media giants and to the people listening here now on how to move forward here?
Again, like the parties and lobbyists, they're putting themselves out of business. It doesn't maybe seem like it right now, but they are inevitably making themselves obsolete, because greater things are going to rise. And with our blockchain app, I didn't really go, it's on our website, and I'll go into greater detail in the next interview, but it will become a hub beyond traditional social media on a decentralized platform for the people. That is the goal of free and equal elections down the road. For my moment here on Earth, for the ideas to carry on a decentralized ledger far beyond my time speck of seconds really here on Earth right now overall, if you look at the grand scheme of things. So I see, again, those platforms, they're putting themselves out of business, no integrity at all. And despite how you feel about the not current president, but the previous one before, many could argue, and rightfully so, that even prior to him, there was a lot of problems with the elections. I mean, Dr. Ron Paul, Sanders, both directly felt that it was stolen, taken from them, not counted right. So this is not a new thing. So if anything, this last election has opened up the eyes of many more people. So they're going through that anger phase right now, but they're starting to simmer down and here, or somewhat. But free and equal elections, we're here to help them, get really caught up on what's really going on, because we've seen it for so long, decades in the making, and it is nothing new. What has happened this last election and the mail-in ballots, one could say mail-in ballots, there's a pure side to it. Yeah, mail-in ballots so people can get more involved. But then you have people like Soros and all funneling these IDs from overseas, and it's just co-opted. And we have mail-in ballots. All right, but we can implement Congress pretty much overnight, this thing called contact tracing, but we can't vote through our phones,
Imagine that.
I mean, come on, can we cast a paper ballot and vote through our phone? So we have a track record of paper, and then we can go, through our on the ledger and put in our 10 or 20 code, however it is, and verify. Oh, yep, there's my vote. It counts. This is what we're in 2021, but of course we have a system that doesn't want to let these things happen. So that's what we're going to rise outside of the system and peacefully replace them all and build something beautiful, the old paradigm. And going back to your question of those social media platforms like YouTube, shame on you. Shame on them for doing and deleting the people's voices. Not cool. So we're going to remember that. We will.
I think so. And I have one more question, and Maryam, and then I'll give you the microphone here to go through some of your questions, and maybe we'll do some audience questions as well if we have time. So my last question to you, Christina, is about the rule of law. So we've talked about here how the masses can move away from maybe these social media giants who are, pushing their clients away really by their actions. And so eventually a new system will come to replace them. I can see that happening now, actually. And you can see that even in their dwindling numbers. So I agree with what you're saying. That's something where the change is already occurring now. So this is just going to continue to grow exponentially. Now, in terms of rule of law, we can do the best we can to have free and fair and equal elections. We can have voting apps on blockchain. We can move away from these social media censorship platforms. But at the end of the day, if we do all of that and still at the top, we don't have a fair judicial system that actually applies the law, how are we going to have free and equal elections?
Well, the question is, why don't we have a fair judicial system? It's this easy. It's the Democrats and Republicans that appoint, right? These judges, they're corrupt D's and R's, so they're going to appoint corrupt judges that continue to help get them reelected over and over again. So when we target congressional races, we're not going to just stop there, replacing D's and R's alike with independent-minded candidates. Like I said, initially may use party lines to get elected, but over time, will just run as independents because there'll be a platform and movement and blockchain, ledger that'll help support these candidates. But when you get these accountable candidates elected, which again has to happen, it will happen, the ladder's not an option, then they're going to be appointing judges that are accountable. So that just resolves that situation right there. Of course, we could always explore how we can improve the system and shift again the power from the federal to the local level. But my take is that free and equal elections, I'm here to unite more voices and more choices. That's our slogan. And let the people decide. Let the people decide and connect with these leaders through a blockchain ledger, connect with them directly, have conversations so they can listen. They're there to serve the people, not money, not anyone else, but listen to the people. And so I think that's how we're going to see the judicial system become more transparent. And once we replace members of Congress, then it's going to be all levels, federal, state, local, every single person in office.
Okay, very good. Maryam, the steering wheel is yours.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, Christina, and points. Like, I would think if we look at what we can learn from this past election, isn't there a surge that has occurred because people are waking up? So are you seeing a revival of your more people flocking to you?
Huge. And you really called it earlier, the sort of speakers that we have now crossing from the talk of making the world a better place to actually doing it are hopping on board with free and equal elections. This has been a long time waiting. I am so patient. I'm not even attached to an outcome anymore, because when you're not attached, that's when things, tend to go faster. And I just am in a place of loving life and being present and being here. But gosh, you are so right. There are just so many people from I'm not going to be so political to, okay, I guess it's time to be involved in politics, because imagine a day when somebody looks at a politician and you're like, ooh, politician. But in the future, it's going to be like, that's cool. She's a politician. She's doing it for us. Thank you. Like, that's what's coming. And that's what free and equal elections is here to bridge that divide, that gap of people who are thought leaders to come on our platform and be comfortable to get involved in the ways that they want to get involved. So it's up to them to choose. And so, gosh, in this last election, as challenging as it may have been for many, for me, it was like, yeah, people are waking up. Like, it's going to be challenging to get through that process, but that's part of the process for so much peace and beauty that's on the horizon. And I just see that happening and rising within the US, and that will definitely catch on to the rest of the world. It will.
Awesome. And then my other question is, I got kicked out or asked to leave in CPAC, and so I came to the conclusion, like I was constantly saying, it could all be political theater, and then for my own self, that's where I am back to, I guess, independence beyond these two. What are some tools to share about how to maintain integrity? Because I call it the piggy effect, where you like in Lord of the Flies, these kids set out to do something revolutionary and progressive and better, and then next thing you know, they're kicking Piggy off the cliff, and they're the same crap that they tried to avoid. So how do you maintain that integrity and that beyond just not taking money from lobbyists?
You put it on the ledger. You put everything on the ledger and let the people see what's real and what's not real. And you can go and learn more about it at freeandequal.org, and you can see a page there, a blockchain voting app, and it has more details of, if you go under About on the far left, and the blockchain app. And you can read some of the details of what that will incorporate. But you put everything on the ledger. I foresee a bright light is shining down on the system, and this is just the beginning. And I like to sometimes say, we're just going to see the cockroaches scatter, go away. Let's just not even put our energy or ill will towards those that have done really not good things. Let's focus on replacing and building the new and the beautiful and the love and the compassion. So that's, I think I feel strongly that this is the primary tool you see right there, the blockchain elections app. That's the logo of Nexus Earth, which I think we'll have Colin Cantrell hopefully here on a future. But he's helping power our app, and his dad is Jim Cantrell, co-founder of SpaceX with Elon Musk. So I have learned a lot about blockchain voting from Colin Cantrell, and about space and so on, CubeSats and decentralization. Like that's where the future is going. So I'm excited for it. And
I meant just within a human, like the atmosphere of the community or the collection. Do you ever encounter where you have to steer people back because they are losing their way? Does that, just to maintain integrity and not become the same thing that you're trying to avoid?
I think that once somebody has crossed the lines of compromising, it's hard to bring them back, especially if they're involved in running for office or any sort of leadership role. Because once you compromise, it's like compromising is what has gotten us where we are today. It's a different role. I feel strongly that the leaders that I connect with more recognize that I've had many opportunities, but they weren't even opportunities. I've had, because for me, it wasn't even an opportunity, but I've had people offer to say, here, take $500,000 so we can have this toxic chemical or item distributed at United We Stand Festival and put on the map. I'm like, no, it's not for sale. Compromising, it's not. That's what's gotten us where we are today, and all these politicians for sale. So now I think a majority of people are a bit confused right now. They're prone to emotions. It's so much bigger than this last election. I saw somebody say this last election was an election. Well, arguably, how many have really been an election? I mean, again, Paul and Sanders arguably maybe should have won as well. So, I mean, this is not a new thing. So I don't know. So it's a great question. I hope I'm getting to it, but I don't know. On the other end, always have hope. I still like to plant seeds. Even if somebody's far gone in a different world, I'll still plant a seed and let them be. And I've had quite a few people come back around 6-8 years later. So I don't know. I'm kind of simmering on the question. It just depends on the individual. But I always choose to still trust. I've been through a lot. I recognize why nobody else is doing what I'm doing with free and equal elections, why nobody else has been able to put on a nationally televised debate outside of the CPD. And it has been an uphill challenge, but I wouldn't change a thing. I just really wouldn't. I'm taking that knowledge to take this platform where I know it will be one day. And I really welcome as many people in the world that want to join it to hop on board and learn from it and be open-minded. And I choose to trust. I always give the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. Despite the challenges I've overcome, I'm not going to let it dim my light. Don't let what's happening in the world dim your light. That's what I want to put out there. And spread that energy, that bright light. We all have it deep in our heart. We do, no matter, we do. Tap into that.
Now you're talking woo-woo. I love it.
Right.
It wouldn't be my show if I didn't bring a little bit of woo-woo into the conversation. So let me do this. But first, Maryam, did you have any more questions for Christina? And we'll also ask the audience here, if you guys have any questions for Christina, now's the time. Please put them in high caps in the live chat now. And while we wait for you guys to populate that, we'll round out here between the last questions of Maryam and myself.
I'm good for now. Just want to thank you, Christina, and your energy comes through. And I came from being into Panga and going to just more conscience, but it seemed like they were leaning more with D's. And then I was really dismayed and disappointed of trying to have conversations when I started seeing things more from a right perspective or conservative. And then I'm sad that we're not able to bridge the gap. And that's the real answer. And maybe the answer is independence, or, transcending beyond those two parties. But we need to be able to communicate and hear each other out. And like, if I, tell you AOC is an actress, you shouldn't hang up with me and have a little sissy fit at 45.
I would say don't be sad about the whole not being able to bridge the gap or whatnot. Be happy, because we are bridging the gap. We're bridging. We're coming together. So, like, I am happy to know that you two are out there, and the Apollos of the world, there's not Apollos, that brought us together. And I am literally been on back to back, I don't know, 10, 20 calls in a row in this interview today. And Took me a minute to get present in the beginning, but here I am.
Me too.
Overcoming the odds. And so, but it just like, I had the honor of meeting, I would say, one of the best questions I ever had in a radio interview. A guy looked at me and said, so have you ever met somebody that's a hero to you? And I was like, I have. Her name is Amelia Boynton Robinson of Selma. And Amelia, talk about, I've got chills, bridge building. She was the spark that sparked the March of Montgomery, right? And she was there before Martin Luther King ever came in. She was the mama, the mentor of all these civil rights leaders. And she marched across that bridge and was tear gassed and beaten and left for dead on the bridge. And shortly thereafter, Martin Luther King came in. And so her building her community for 30 years in Selma, I've been building my community for almost a decade here in Cambria, California, is so key. And so here is a bridge called currently the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after a Ku Klux Klan member, which is just a complete contrary. I foresee one day that bridge being named after Amelia Boynton Robinson and her home being a historical site. And it's no coincidence that I met this true heroine at 109 years of age, a couple months before she passed away. She was slated to be our keynote speaker at United We Stand, I think, in 2015. And so what she taught me in that interview, I think I was the last one to interview her, she said, a voteless people is a hopeless people. And that was like, okay, this woman has like sparked the Voting Rights Act. It was because of her. Ramsey Clark, whom we just lost at 93 years of age several days ago. I've met him a couple times at his home in Manhattan, and that one's very sad. I'm still to write and reach out to his sister. I don't even know what to say. But he served under Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson, and he wrote the Voting Rights Act, I think it's 65. I want to check that date. I should know that for sure. And so this is what changed America. Some say 50 years. I say there's no time frame on that. So there's bridges. It's beyond. I see so many bridges. I see no gaps. I see us coming together, and I see so much peace and love and groundedness coming and conversations. And I'm excited. In the words of Pete Seeger, he is so right. He was so right. He said, one day, we shall overcome. And I said, we will overcome. I'm so with Seeger.
Beautiful. I love it. Jenny says here, I can't wait to watch this from scratch. So thank you, Jean-Claude, Maryam, and Christina. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. Okay, so my woo question for tonight. I've had this team of remote viewers on the show quite a few times. They're from Crypto Viewing. And one of their viewings from last year, which has not occurred yet, and I'm bringing their slide up on the screen here, they foresaw an event, and this was a remote viewing in relation to the death of the dollar. And much to their surprise, this is what came out. So these emergency meetings, shock, dismay, disbelief, ruin, catastrophe. These are congressmen hunching over, puking their guts out, crying, all of these words here. And the bottom right corner is the important part. Sense of adjourning for the last time, transfer of power. So you talked about, Christina, earlier, how the money system is part and parcel here, the control structure. But as we move in maybe to crypto technologies, we might be able to go away from that. So I'm curious, from this remote viewing, this vision maybe of the death of the US dollar and how that would change our political system. So I thought I'd ask you if you have any views or ideas or dreams about that yourself.
I mean, my dad's spoken about it. He actually worked for the Federal Reserve for 9 years before starting Taxpayers United of America. I don't know if I've ever publicly said in an interview, and he quit 1 year shy of receiving a government pension for life. And he saw the corruption within the Federal Reserve. So I've learned a lot from my dad being in that unique experience. And I've also learned a lot from G. Edward Griffin, monetary expert. Lives 40 minutes down the road from me. I've been there for days here and there, and how my dad, how the Federal Reserve note, he'll be speaking at United We Stand festival here in Cambria, July 3rd and 4th. and how the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. I'm feeling most of your viewers know this. Simultaneously, the income tax being created, which funded the war, going right into war. None of it's a coincidence. So these banksters, Jekyll Island. So it's kind of probably the worst sort of monetary system. There's a lot of room for improvement. It's kind of like the voting system. The worst kind we could have is singular vote. Keeps re-electing really warmongers, these and ours alike. The parties don't matter. Almost all of them are. It's a business. We're not invited, to the party. It's a political party for that matter. So I think alternative currencies are awesome. I think alternative voting methods are awesome. I love that we have a cryptocurrency on the rise, and sure, will the system try to regulate, is there Ripple and the fight for one world currency? And, you look at what's happening in China. I'm just learning a lot about that too. And so it's just like, let's just stop fighting. Life is so much bigger than the monetary, green, even crypto. I mean, it's all made out of thin air, right? So is crypto, the Federal Reserve, crypto, fractional reserves made out of thin air. Like, let's just start bartering and trading and diversifying and talking and enjoying what we're here really on the earth for. And money is just a tool. Okay, have enough so it doesn't control you. That's where I'm at, my mindset, and it doesn't anymore, thank goodness. So it's not always been that way in this arena of this work in a nonprofit. But I just am really excited to see alternative currencies out there. And it's actually cryptocurrency that's really been supporting free and equal elections. And I think it's really about to be a catalyst to take us to another level here pretty soon again. So that's cool.
Very good. Okay, so there's a few questions. I'm scanning for the questions here. Some of them are relating to the crypto and the blockchain itself and the idea here of blockchain voting in your app. So we're going to leave that for the second show where we have our IT guys with us here, and we'll dive into that. So folks, don't worry about that. And then there's a few other questions, but we've answered them at the beginning of the show. So maybe these people were just joining us now on how to get rid of this media censorship and some of these big money dumps or lobbying into your systems. We also talked about that. So there is a question on the screen here, and I love it actually too. Polly P says, I'm interested in the artwork over your right shoulder, and somebody else earlier said, hey, can you make an NFT about that and we'll buy it? So what is it?
Well, it's gonna be a tough one to buy because it is the original, and the artist is named Michael Krigler, and I know his brother from college back in St. Mary's days in Winona, Minnesota. And I fell in love with it. I had little printed posters in my home and was giving him as gifts. And I'm like, Michael, is that original available? He's like, yeah, I was just about to sell it. And I was like, it was so much money for me back. I mean, it was beautiful. And the piece is called The Vision, right? How cool is it? It's called The Vision. I flip it around, The Vision. And I have to ask him again, the medium and how he did it. It's like an acrylic, how it's like layers. And so I don't have that detail, but I love the concept. With United We Stand, we're coming from a place of native prayer, just off the phone with Lakota Way. And we're all a little bit of, I've known since I was 10 that I'm like 1/16 Choctaw. I think we're a little bit of everything, if you go far enough back, all united nexus, right? Interconnected, the meaning of that. So I love the native aspect of it with quantum physics is how I relate to the piece. I look at the middle and I think of the galaxy in the world, how this is one small little piece of Earth that we're on in this huge galaxy. And I just love the concept of the indigenous and the realm of quantum physics and science, which I think beyond breaking this electoral system and making it transparent, like I'm excited to learn about quantum physics and science and everlasting whatever here on Earth. That's coming once we break through the chains of these archaic ways.
Maybe I'll have you back on because we'll talk about disclosure and this 180 days to disclosure that's bringing us in June here. And of course, there's a lot already at the Pentagon coming up on the surface here. And we might be talking about a whole new way of seeing not quantum physics, but actually the ether. So that's a conversation for another day. I love it. So everybody loves that painting. So it's not for sale, is it?
No, it's Michael Krigler. Michael Krigler, Crigler, and he might have prints for sale. That's no problem, but no, it's an original, and I got it. And yeah, I made the offer to pay it out over a year, and he took it. I said, I'm going to use it for beautiful things and interviews in the future, and he resonated with that, and I was like, yes. And so, so that was cool. Yeah, that's what I said. She is all in on the woo. How can you not be with these two, right? I mean, come on, you are all on the woo too. You comments down there, I see you.
Yeah, Maryam says she's just the woo, and I'm a little bit more woo woo. So together, we even it out. You know, it's very good. Well, thank you so much, everyone, and I want to give this opportunity first to Christina to maybe give to the audience here some words of encouragement moving forward here, and also maybe talk to the youth in the audience about how it is very important that they do not stay disenfranchised and really get excited about this again. So I'll give you a little bit of time here for those last words. And also after that, please let us know where we can find you and support your work.
Oh, I definitely will. I am not giving up. I see that comment. She ain't giving up. And by the way, I love that. My pension is crypto. Same. I tell you, I'm with you on that comment. And it's just back to the mindset. I was at this, I heard you talk about CPAC, and I'm with you. Co-opted Republican operatives. It's changed. I've heard that in the network. I went there once. I'm like, oh, not for me. But I love Students for Liberty a lot. Alexander McCoben back in the day, being the founder of that. And I remember going to one of the events and speaking at that, and Students for Sensible Drug Policy. And this girl came up, and there was probably like 50 or 100 students, and she kind of caught me a little off guard, and she was very down. And she said, why do you do what you do? It's just not gonna make a difference. Like, it's just not gonna work. And I just was kind of stunned and taken back. And she's so young, and I'm like, okay. And I have all these faces looking, and I just kind of looked at her and I said, then why are you here? Because the moment you give up, you become a part of the problem. And that is not an option. Giving up is not an option. So I urge all of you out there that, I mean, things may get difficult, and they are, but oh man, I go and I try to think of myself in like beyond third world countries, and it's just not that bad here like it can be in a lot of other, like it is in a lot of other places. And so all the more reason to unite and fix things. It might get a little tougher before it gets better. But my goal is for it to not get like super too tough. I'm really not liking the depression and the leaning in the pharmaceutical industry. And we all know the reason. I just had a private call a week ago or so with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and learning so much about that world that he's in, the wrongful censorship. He lends his support to United We Stand Festival, and we'll be speaking at a future one. He can't make it at this one because of 80-year tradition, you know, the Kennedy family to be at for July 3rd, 4th. So I urge you guys to go on to freeandequal.org, freeandequal.org. We will be implementing independent media into it, the live stream, activating our same media team from 2012 when we reached tens of millions with the Larry King presidential debate, are all back on board and more. So I urge you to take a look. We'll have a sign up for the live stream in the coming days or so, and we're going to have a lot more talent and artists listed on the page as well. So as Amelia Boynton Robinson also told me in that final interview, and it's in her book, Bridge of Jordan, she said, and very strongly in her words, I have no fear. And I'm over it, system. The fear that you're mongering towards us is just, it's a facade. And right. I saw a comment, the person's right. So many of them are getting older, and that paradigm is dying off. And the new and the youth and the game changers, 18 and 28-year-olds, we're rising, and everyone is invited. We ask for nonviolent action, like in the words of Martin Luther King, and we ask you to bring your ideas and your peace and your love, because no matter how difficult things get, like for this girl, when she looked at me and said, you're right, I'm not going to give up. I'm not. And she just shifted just like that. And I was like, oh, and then that influenced another 50, 100 people around her to respond that way. And so when we make that choice to really be in that mindset, that's how we're going to overcome. We shall overcome what is happening. Right.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's awesome. And Maryam, how about you? Some last words of wisdoms and where the audience can find you and, of course, support your work.
I was muted. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for your energy. And people need to be uplifted, and we need to remember that it starts with us. We need to be the change that we want to see. So you can find me on Twitter. If we can show my Telegram,
Sure.
please, which is Truth Lives Here. Since I lost so many thousands on Twitter, I'm mostly on the Telegram channel. And this YouTube channel, forever, who knows how long it will. Is that the channel?
So let me see here. For some reason, it went to a post as opposed to the exact channel. So hold on a second here. You caught me by surprise, Maryam. Talk about your Twitter and your YouTube channel first, and I'll come back to it.
Okay, yeah, and right now I'm waking up every morning from 7 to 1 in the morning, covering this Derek Chauvin trial and working on my book on George Floyd and multi-layered psyop examined. So yeah, that's where I'll be, and yeah, thank you. This has been lovely to speak with you, Christina. Are you an earth sign?
Christina, are you an earth sign? Christina, can you still hear us?
It's hard to hear you.
Are you an earth sign?
I don't know.
When's your birthday?
June 17th.
Okay, yeah. We'd have to look at your moon and your rising, but that's Gemini.
Oh, that's your question. What is your sign? It's hard. You really?
No, oh yeah, if you have any earth in your chart.
Oh, I do have an astrologer that's offered to do my reading. He actually happens to be the one accountable board member on the Cambria Community Service District, Harry Farmer, who will also be speaking at United We Stand Festival. And we did a candidates forum here in Cambria in 2017 with Ed Asner. And Harry was the winner of that forum by far, and he beat out the incumbent by 33 votes. Wow. And that has preserved the town of Cambria, and that goes to show you can make real change. So yeah, Gemini is what I am. I think I have like work mode and party mode are my two personalities, because Geminis get that rap. That's about all I can grab from that. But it's true. I mean, you can hang out with the Brock Pierce campaign, you can party, man, no kidding. So actually he's really, the whole team there is really a bright light, and all those candidates that are debate, Howie Hawkins and even Gloria La Riva and so on were just so fantastic to me. Even Vernon Supreme was in our first debate last year. I mean, just lots of beautiful hearts and a lot of people who care about our country. So, but yeah, I'm gonna get my sign read by our astrologer.
Your chart read.
And maybe we'll do a third show, and we'll do an after show sequence, and you can tell us all the crazy stories of your parties here as you hit the road. So there you go, folks. That was the first of two episodes here on election reform with Christina Tobin. You can find her work at freeandequal.org, and also on Twitter here. They're quite prolific, so if you want to stay in touch with them on a daily basis, this is where to do it. And of course, you can find Maryam at Maryam HENEIN on YouTube and on Twitter at Maryam HENEIN. And finally, last but not least, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe on this, our backup channel here. We're at 28,900 strong. Hey, we're almost going to hit that 30,000. I'm really excited about that. After being deleted and having to start all over again back in December. Thank you so much for everyone. I really appreciate your guys' support. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live here on Beyond Mystic. And thank you, Christina, and thank you, Maryam. And I guess...
Thank you, Jean-Claude.
OK. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Au revoir.